Welcome to phase one of our program. The way this breaks down is we're going to do 3 full body workouts per week, typically Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Only 2 sets per exercise. All right, so the way you do this, there's 2 ways to do this. You can either do 1 set of every muscle group of every exercise until you finish all 16 exercises, and then go back to the beginning again and repeat that. Or you can pick 2 of the exercises and go back and forth, 1, 2, 1, 2. Take the next 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Take the next 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, until you're done with all those exercises.
For whom is this workout? This workout could be used for the beginner or the mildly ambitious person, male or female. Also be used by the intermediate level person or the advanced level person, simply by selecting a weight for each exercise that requires a higher percentage of effort.
So the first question he said was, in this one paragraph right here, you say the possibility of glenoid dislocation, which I mentioned is one of the possible consequences of heavy bench pressing. This next slide, I'll show you a little close up. That's the paragraph he's talking about. One potential consequence of doing a very heavy bench press is illustrated in 1315. The injury is called anterior dislocation of the humerus. Basically, what I'm saying there is that the head of the humerus can either be pushed forward out of socket or pulled forward out of socket. And it could easily happen with a very heavy bench press, especially when you get down to the bottom and the pectoral muscle is pulling from around the corner and it's pulling more forward than it is in. Okay, so Mike really seemed to question how viable, how likely that is to happen. And then he posted this on the YouTube video comment section. In the book, glenoid dislocation is proposed as a downside of deep barbell pressing. During the discussion, meaning during the video, Doug revised his opinion on this, stating that he actually thought pectoral avulsion or rupture was the bigger risk by far. You'll see that wasn't a revision. He might want to call it a revision. That's not a revision. Thus, if we read the book as written, he didn't read the book. So maybe if he said, if we read the paragraph as written, even still, it wouldn't be accurate. We would avoid benching because of fear of glenoid dislocation. But if we listen to what Doug says here, we might actually think bench pressing is okay as long as it's not heavier than a 5-rep max. What's the last word on this? Okay, so clearly the context there is suggesting that I can't make up my mind, that I'm wishy-washy, that I say one thing in the book and I say another thing in the video. Let's look a little closer. So let's just sort of synopsize what he's saying there. Doug thinks the downside of bench pressing is shoulder dislocation. Doug revised his view during the show, admitting that rupture is the bigger risk. Doug then revised his view that benching is only risky if it's heavy. Doug can't make up his mind. He says one thing in the book, another on the show. All right. I don't comment in the book at all about which is the bigger risk. I never say that this is the number 1 biggest risk, this is the number 2. I don't say it at all. I just say benching heavy, doing anything super heavy, has higher risk of injury. And then I mentioned shoulder dislocation as one possible consequence. Second point, people do bench presses heavier than they do other exercises because they regard it as a barometer of strength. Nobody would do a 1-rep or a 2 or 3-rep max lying dumbbell press, right? They do the bench press for 1, 2, 3 reps because they think that it's a strength builder more so than using dumbbells, which is not necessarily true. And they want to establish some kind of hierarchy. They want to identify what their max 1 rep is. And even if their goal is primarily muscle building or bodybuilding, and that's a completely different type of goal with higher risk and much less benefit to the pecs. Heavy bench press creates a higher risk of injury. Bench press is already not a great pectoral exercise, even if you're using a weight that allows you to get 10 reps or 8 reps. It's got limited range of motion. It's got, you're pushing more out than you are toward the midline of the body. And doing a 1 to 3 rep max is not in the hypertrophy range. Now, the previous page of this comment regarding the dislocation thing, in this little section here, I say, let's examine the bench press. It's considered a foundational exercise by many people, and it is one of the most popular compound exercises. It mostly engages the pectorals along with some involvement of the triceps and the anterior deltoids. In addition to being used for the purpose of muscular development, it is also considered a strength builder. The question is, how does it compare with other pectoral tricep exercises in terms of effectiveness, efficiency, and safety? So if he would have just gone to the previous page, you would have seen the context here was to evaluate the bench press in terms of productivity for pectoral building and consequence for injury, possibility for injury, using it the way people typically use it, which is to go very, very heavy on it for testing their strength. Okay, so 2 paragraphs before the paragraph he commented on, I say this: if your goal is muscular development, you never need to perform 1 repetition max lift of any kind. It's completely unproductive for the goal of muscular development. The lowest number of reps that is likely to be productive for muscle growth is 4, although realistically it's probably closer to 6. Performing fewer reps than that with heavier weight produces less muscular growth with a much higher risk of injury. So as you can see right there, I'm not saying anything about glenoid dislocation. What I'm saying is going heavy has higher risk of injury. Glenoid dislocation happens to be one of them. I didn't say it was greater than pectoral rupture. I didn't say it was less than pectoral rupture, but he was really sort of hammering that point. And then when I said, well, I suppose pectoral rupture might be, you've revised your opinion. I didn't have an opinion expressed in the beginning. That wasn't the issue. Okay, let's look at some of the literature. This is the Army Public Health Center, weight training injuries discussion of the bench press. Number 1 is the rupture. Number 2 is joint dislocation. So am I out in left field suggesting that shoulder dislocation is far-fetched? No. How about this one? High Mountain Orthopedics. 3 most common shoulder injuries from working out. Shoulder dislocation is the one I've circled there. Rotator cuff injury is the first. Here's another one, Total Ortho Express. Why does my shoulder hurt after bench pressing? Because heavy bench pressing is very, very stressful on the shoulder joint. How about another one, Physio Health, anterior shoulder instability and the bench press. Look at the last part of the part I've underlined there, anterior shoulder dislocations is what they're talking about. Last sentence, consequently, this is why the bench press, which places the shoulder into a similar position, can be problematic. So again, I'm not out in left field, but he was trying to suggest that, glenoid dislocation, that's super unlikely. It's not exactly unlikely. Another one, 6 reasons why you have shoulder pain when you bench press. Right? So yes, heavy bench presses can cause a lot of shoulder problems. I discourage bench press in part because it's not a good bodybuilding exercise, and in part because people don't use it like they use other exercises. They use it as a test of strength, which has a much higher risk of injury. Now, this is a video you'll see on YouTube. This person is a very young guy. He's very well developed. His name is Tristan. You can look it up on YouTube. It's called My Shoulder Popped While Benching, Had to Go to the Hospital. Okay, so number 1 photo there, he's getting ready, tightening his belt. Number 2, he's lowering the bar. Number 3, he's raising the bar. He's already popped his left shoulder. You can see the spotter is already grabbing the left side of the bar, right? And then the 4th picture is, he's pulling the bar off his chest. Slide number 5, the bar has been racked. He's grabbing his left shoulder. He's leaning forward in pain. He's wincing. Popped his left shoulder, had to go to the hospital. Did he tear his pec? No, he did not tear his pec. He popped his shoulder. Now, what's the actual injury? We don't know. But the point is, when you're going heavy on the bench press, shoulder problems, injuries, damage can happen. That's the point of what I'm saying. The last paragraph in that section is the bench press can be used safely with some degree of benefit. Some degree of benefit. When using moderate weight, on the other hand, it is still not an especially good exercise for physique development. There are better pectoral exercises as well as better tricep exercises. This statement is not meant as an indictment of the bench press. Rather, the bench press is simply another example of a popular compound exercise that is not quite as good for muscle building as everyone has been led to believe. There's nothing ambiguous about my position here. It's all spelled out there in the book. This is another example of how Mike did not read either of these two pages. The one that has the comment he singled out, the previous page, and all of that page right there. If he would have just read those two pages, he would not have taken the position that Doug thinks shoulder dislocation is the biggest risk, and then he changes his mind, he revises it. No, it's very clearly stated right there. I do not state in my book that shoulder dislocation is the primary reason a person should avoid bench pressing. He surmised that. Pectoral rupture may be more likely, may be more common, but shoulder dislocation is still one of several possible injuries that can occur with heavy bench presses, and also tricep rupture I've seen. The point is simply that bench presses going heavy has risks that are unnecessary if your goal is maximum pectoral development.